Hello manager! Today we are talking about interview questions and answers for project managers, and I'm going to provide you strategies on how to answer these questions correctly. How do I know it? Because I'm on the receiving side. I interviewed hundreds of project managers. Alright, first of all, I want you to notice that I left you a link in the description to this video with an article where I cover all possible questions that project managers might get on the interview. So after this video, you would want to check those out as well. And the very first question that you will get for sure is, tell me about yourself. But before I'll tell you how to answer it, have you ever wondered why interviewers and recruiters ask this question in the first place? It may seem like they want to know a little bit more about you, about why you wanted to become a project manager in the first place and stuff like this. But in essence, they just need a starting point to dig deeper into the topic and understand whether you have what it takes to be a great project manager in their company. So don't retell your whole biography starting from the elementary school. You want to have a prepared answer where you quickly jump through your experience, through your major points of your careers, where you can highlight your skills that are relevant for the role of a project manager. Things like leadership, management in general, your communication skills, work with clients, and so on. And in just a few minutes I will explain an approach on how to write your CV in such a way that it helps you answer this question and even more drive the whole interview into the stories that you are interested in rather than answering some random questions from the recruiters. So I want you to remember that tell me about yourself question is not actually about you. It's just a starting point where recruiters need to catch something and dig deeper, so help them do that. Okay, the next question that you usually get is tell me about your previous experience, and the recruiter points into one section of your CV. But honestly, if you hear this question after the tell me about yourself question, it means that you did a poor job explaining or highlighting your skills as a project manager. They didn't catch anything from your story that they can dig deeper. So in any case, if you hear this question, you need to double down on the skills relevant for a project manager. Management, leadership, communication, maybe some administration work. Okay, let's stop here for another moment and think about it. Why recruiters and interviewers ask this series of questions in the first place, rather than jumping right into the theory of project management? That's because they know that there is a gap between the theory of project management and how we do project management in practice. And this means it's a great opportunity for you as a candidate to prepare for all these interview questions in advance. So my big idea for you is to prepare stories that will highlight the skills that you want to highlight. But for this trick to work, you need a powerful and structured CV of a project manager. So let's talk about how to hijack an interview and drive it in the direction that you want. I want to remember this mantra. A random CV leads to random questions on the interview. That's what I usually see with the new project managers. They send a CV full of their previous unrelated experience and they describe how good they were as a quality assurance engineers or as software development engineers, and they mention nothing about project management. Senior project managers do the same thing. They describe in all the details experience that was 10 years ago and has little relevance to what they know today. I'm pretty sure you have a standard CV where you name the job title, years you spent there, and your responsibilities. And these sections by sections go back to your first job. The thing is, all project managers do the same responsibilities, and reiterating them times and times again in all your job descriptions for each job is useless. It gives no benefit to you as a candidate. So rather than doing that and describing your responsibilities, I recommend that project managers put achievements under each of their jobs, and it should be only 1, 2, maybe 3 maximum achievements. And believe me, nothing shows your experience better than a good story. So behind each achievement there should be a prepared story that you are ready to tell. And a good story should have some problem, it should have some plan, solution and the result. If you can put it all into one short paragraph, 3 sentences long, 3 lines long, it will be better than your responsibilities. This way you'll have a structured CV which starts with your most recent job and the achievements in that job, then the second job and maybe less relevant achievements but still in the field that is relevant for the role of a project manager. And if you go back to your first job, you will still have achievements relevant for a project manager. I hope you got the point about how to structure your CV. Let's move on to the next question. And usually it sounds like, what are the main responsibilities of a project manager? A few years ago I did a short study and outlined about 40 responsibilities which I deem main responsibilities of a project manager. And in experience, a junior project manager will try to name some of them. But if you want to position yourself as an experienced project manager, you should say that your main responsibility is to motivate people and lead them through the project. Because if you think about it, creating a project plan, creating some documentation on the project, communicating with clients, doing estimates, all of this is just a fraction of the efforts of the whole project, and you do it on your own mostly. But the major bulk of your efforts and time will go into motivating people to use the project management plan and project management approach that you created and developed for them. And the best argument that you can use on an interview is this. You can say that a project manager doesn't produce actual results for the clients or customers. It's a supporting role. So you try to leverage the skills and knowledge of other people. You try to make their work as efficient as possible. That's why your main responsibility is to work with people and motivate them to do their best. By the way, the sponsor of this video is my free resource guide called 5 Critical Areas a Great Project Manager Needs to Master. This PDF provides you access to unique content and tools that I don't share anywhere else. Things like my full guide to leadership, scope and risk management plan templates, and lots of other valuable resources. If you want to be a successful project manager, this guide is for you. The link is in the description below this video. Alright, the next common question that you will for sure get is, why do you think you are a good project manager? Or what makes a good project manager? And here I believe there is no good way to answer this question, because each individual project manager who will interview you will have his own opinion what is the most important skills and traits of a great project manager. That's why I recommend that you do a quick research here and try to find out what is in the head of that person. And the idea here is simple. Whenever a recruiter reaches out to you for the first time to get your CV or invite you for a pre-screening interview, you will ask him or her what makes a good candidate for that role, what makes a good project manager in that company. There is a big chance that a recruiter and the interviewing project manager has discussed this already. They talked about the job responsibilities and job descriptions, what they expect from the candidate, and what kind of candidates to filter out during pre-screening. So if they provide you the answer, just use the same words and give them back the answer they provided you. Yeah, it feels like cheating. Thank me later for the insider tips. Okay, here's another approach, and it's a powerful move that you can use to answer this what makes a good project manager question. But it only works if you have an interview one-on-one with a project manager. If you have a panel, it's better to use the first approach. You may say that you have some internal feeling that makes you feel good when you lead people, when you help them achieve their career goals, and when you organize the work. This intrinsic motivation is the main driver for your career, and believe me, most of project managers will relate to this feeling, and it will give you some bonus points. Next, we have a question that most of the candidates don't understand. It's, tell me about your weaknesses. And here's a secret. We are not talking about your weaknesses here, we are talking about your honesty and integrity. There is no way to assess from your own story whether this weakness is a real thing and it will make you a bad candidate for this role. So with this question we try to test your self-awareness and your honesty and integrity. So don't try to put your weaknesses into strengths, like I work a lot, I'm a workaholic. That's bullshit. I recommend that you prepare a story where you tell that you lack some experience in certain tools or techniques or in some area of project management, like for example budgeting or something like that. And you want a project where you can learn it and learn the best practices. Most project managers understand that gaining this knowledge is a matter of few weeks or maybe months, and you will be up to speed for their company. So as you understand, you are talking about a real weakness that you have, but you are willing to resolve this weakness. And it's not a weakness that is a showstopper for this current role. Now we're getting into more practical project management questions, and I believe the most difficult one is: do you know how to motivate people? Inexperienced project manager and leader will tell you about some random techniques and processes or tools and things that he will do maybe on a daily basis. On the other hand, an experienced project manager will lay out the whole system and approach a step-by-step process on how to take one given person and motivate him or her to a level that is required for the project. And hear me out. No one can provide you a prepared answer for an interview, because interviewers will see that you are inexperienced with this motivational system. If you are short on time and you need to get on the interview with this answer as soon as possible, just remember this: you always start from learning about your people. You talk to them, you try to learn their problems, ideas and inspirations. And the most powerful approach to motivate a person is to help him or her build a career. So you will help this person to do their best job possible. You will try to remove distraction, you will set clear tasks and expectations, and later you will get salary raises, promotions and everything that the person wants. That will be a good enough answer for a junior or mid-level project manager, but I do recommend that you invest time and you will read at least some of these books and resources that I mentioned here. Just pause the video and do this screenshot, do the research later and find the links in the description. I have it all on my site for you already. Next we have another tricky question that shows your experience, and it sounds like: how to resolve conflicts? Give us some examples. And I recommend that you structure this answer as a story as well. And the story usually starts that a problem appears and you notice some clues of this problem, but as an experienced project manager you understand that a root cause is a different thing than what you see. So for example, if you see two team members arguing with each other, most likely it's not a personal conflict as it seems to be. There is a root cause to that conflict somewhere else. So as a great leader, you don't avoid, you are not afraid of conflicts, so you approach them directly and you need to speak with each party to know their story about the conflict. And you always try to dig deeper until you find the root cause of the problem, and you may use some techniques, something like 5 whys technique or something else. Next, you always act as a facilitator and a mediator between the parties. You make these parties to negotiate and discuss the problem openly. You don't force them into any decisions. And likewise, you try to help parties to develop some action plan that will suit both sides and that they deem as a solution to their conflict. But that's not all of that. You, as an experienced project manager, you track everything. So you track the progress of the resolution of this conflict. And what's more important, you try to verify that the conflict actually was resolved, not just smoothed or anything else. And you may go even further by saying that you usually have an issue log where you log all these conflicts and you try to see any patterns or some major sources of this conflict, and then you will try to resolve it all in bulk. Alright, moving on to the hard skills of project management, and the most common question that you get is: how do you make estimates? How do you estimate a project? And again, inexperienced project managers will name techniques one by one, like 2 points estimates, 3 points estimates per technique, anything else that they find on the internet and in the books. On the other hand, an experienced project manager knows that to create an accurate estimate, there is a whole series of processes that you need to perform to get to these estimation techniques. So going backwards, you need to understand that to provide accurate estimates, you need to identify all the scope that you need to perform, all the work that you need to perform, and you need to break it down into the smallest tasks that you can possibly do. And yes, you will use the bottom-up estimation technique. But before that, to identify correct scope of work, you need to have good requirements. You need to have no ambiguity on those requirements, and ideally all the requirements should help you to get to the project objective. Otherwise, you are wasting project's resources on the requirements that no one is interested in, and it will be the biggest inaccuracy in your estimates. That's why it's important to identify the project objective and project constraints, and based on that information create a solution that will help you to reach those objectives. And only when you have this whole line of processes and decisions and information, you can come up to the estimating part and use some techniques to do it better. But in most cases, breaking down tasks into smaller pieces and using bottom-up estimate is the most beneficial approach. Alright, next is a difficult question, and it sounds like, do you have any technical background for this project? And I believe that no matter whether you have a technical background or not, your answer is still the same. You will say yes or no, and you follow up with, but I don't use my technical expertise to make decisions on the project. As a project manager, I try to use my leadership skills to leverage the best expertise of my team members. And maybe I use my technical skills just to verify the solutions that they provide. Because in the long run, we all understand that they will be implementing this solution, and it's better that all the ideas, all the estimates, all the technical stuff comes from the team. By the way, if you don't have technical background, that's the only way you should answer this question. Next, we have a group of questions that may come in different forms, but in essence they ask, who is responsible for on a project? And the answer here is always the same. No matter what situation interviewers describe, no matter what happens on the project, you as a project manager always responsible for everything. During the whole project management interview, blaming someone else is a showstopper. They will discard you at once. By the way, if the interviewer asks you, why do you want to leave your previous job? And even if there was some negative experience there, you should always frame it as an experience and never blame your previous employer as well. And the last thing that they will ask you is whether you have any questions to us. And the answer should be, yes, of course, I have a lot of questions. And the questions that you may provide may speak louder than all your previous answers, so do prepare them in advance. And I recommend that you start with, can you explain me the expectations from a candidate during the first few months of work at this position? Second, I would ask whether they have some onboarding process, or will you get a person who will help you during your initial period in this company. Next, if there were some questions during the interview and you couldn't answer them, I would put that question back on the interviewers and ask, hey, you asked me this and that, why it's important in your company? In some cases they will say that that will be some major part of your responsibilities and it's important, but in most cases they will say it was just a theoretical question, don't mind it. Last but not least, if they didn't do that before, I would raise a question of salary. First of all, your salary expectations can back up all the stories that you provided before, especially if you try to get a senior level position. And just to make it clear, you should ask for an adequate salary for the skills and expertise that you have. Don't ever downgrade yourself. And on the other hand, you just don't want to waste time on them if they are not ready to compensate you for your knowledge, expertise and skills. Now, there are many more questions that an interviewer can ask you as a project manager, and I have different other videos on these questions. They cover, for example, IT industry, behavioral questions, and so on. I do recommend that you continue watching one of these videos and learn more about more specific questions that relate to your situation. And if you want to be a great project manager, I do recommend that you check a link in the description and get my resource guide that will help you to pass all these interviews. Thank you so much. See you in the next video. Bye bye.